Hello, my friends. My name is Joshua. This is my 49th year on this planet, and I've got a question for everybody. What the hell are we doing? It's an honest question. What are we doing? Where are we coming from? Where are we going? What is this plan for progress? Will we reach some state where, everyone can just sit around and not doing anything, let AI run the world? Or on the other hand, are we just all going to be slaves to a system that we allow to happen? I've been thinking about this for a very long time. And in the time that I've been a human being on this planet, my brain has been through so many different discoveries, ideals, awakenings, experiences. All the different things that I've had happen in my life have been unique to me, first of all, because I, as an individual, experience everything completely different from you. And that's one of the things I believe we forget. The experiences that we have, the feelings that we have, our levels of serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, what makes a human? What makes a human being? How do our consciousness differ from one another? Do we have a soul? All of these questions that we ponder, you know, and we seek answers through many different means. We look to science to discover things about the world, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I am a strong supporter and strong proponent of the scientific method to make discoveries. But it only gives us one of two different worlds. Carl Jung, for example, believed in, I believe, two different worlds, but he had, many folks don't know this. They think of Carl Jung as a psychologist, and he was definitely interested in the psyche, but he did seances when he was young. He had, with his family members, they had spirits in their house, and he talked about ghosts. He had a very unique view. But he was asked one time, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "I do not believe." He's like, I know God exists." And I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have, this idea that I know that there's something greater, but so few of us don't have to prove that to others. In other words, a majority of people who discover there's something greater all of a sudden rush into one religion or another belief system, and then they shut everybody else out and assume everybody else is wrong, because it's human nature to want to desire to have the truth. And the truth is, you can't grasp the truth. It doesn't exist. It's not available for us. Our 3D minds cannot grasp the bigger reality of why things are the way they are. You can have fleeting glimpses. Those fleeting glimpses can be extremely intense. They can be induced by psychedelic experiences. They can be induced by people who go on vision quests or long-term fasting. Several different methods that people have. Darkness retreats where people, sit in a cave for 7 days. But the whole point in the end is to connect to source, to connect to what they call Brahman in Hindu, but everybody's got their own version of what that ultimate underlying pattern is, that source, that archetype. And I'm going to tell you that it's usually something unexplainable in language. In fact, it's always unexplainable. So, my own personal journey in knowing the truth, I've had many different viewpoints. I've gone through many different. In fact, I was just reading the Corpus Hermeticum earlier, because I was looking for another book. It was the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, and or Hermes, the same character, if you will. They're all the same character. I want to make this clear. Within all the different belief systems, these great religious figures, are often the same person. It's never been a person. You might call it a mediator between man and, if you want to call it, God. That word has been so tainted by the West now, we can't even describe it. But I'm getting to the point of my video. This is not about religion. This is not about belief systems. I needed to include this because it's almost a prerequisite to the discussion that I want to have. I'm thinking if I move this a little bit, maybe it won't be so... The camera seems to be like glitching color, but you know, it's my phone. What can you do? Anyway, I wanted to talk about Revelations because it applies to where we're at in this world. When I said, what do we want? Who are we? And what is our point, right? What are we progressing toward? These questions haunt me. It's just a constant... I feel like our society is running off a cliff. And some people over panic about certain things, whether it be technology or worrying about disease, worrying about getting sick. The whole thing is our conquering of the fear of death is probably the first and foremost thing that we should address in our lives. And that's not something that you can just do overnight. There's something about learning and practicing a behavior before you can actually believe it to be true. So this would apply to faith. For example, a person would have to actually spend time studying something and trying to understand it before it would actually have any benefit to them. You cannot just give a person the answer to a math equation and expect them to know how the problem was done. If they don't know how the problem was done, they can't solve it the next time. This is why a person... It brings me back to that, you know, you teach a man to fish, right? If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You know, teach a man to fish and he can feed himself. These things, if we haven't done the work to get there spiritually, for lack of a better term, then our foundation isn't built and we don't really have a temple to put on it, because that temple will just crumble at the first sign of any intrusion. You just put it right on the soil there, and you know, somebody's going to come up and poke a hole in it. Mark my words, if you continually put out positive energy into the universe and into your life, and try to look at things on the bright side as much as possible, try to understand who you are as much as possible without getting all caught up in ego, over a period of years, you will have grown to be a more happy, you know, happier, but happy is a fleeting term, but happier in general, which is ultimately, I think, this idea of homeostasis that we're all searching for. But homeostasis does not exist because stasis is not what the universe desires. It's motion. This is why negativity, all the problems that we have led us to this point where you and I are living in the strangest time in history. You think about this, you guys. I mean, I'm middle-aged in the strangest, most crazy time so far in history. The things that are coming around the corner that we have to look forward to, good and bad, it's so hard to predict. When I was a kid, we had no idea. Even Star Trek is always the example given. You know, they just had like basically freaking walkie-talkies to talk to one another. They couldn't even fathom in the future that they would have an actual device with a full screen and a picture. It didn't even occur to us that that would even be possible in that short of time. But here we are. And now with AI, I don't think folks really realize what's going to happen, not just to jobs or to art, you know, or creativity, but AI. They're already building AI robots to work in factories. They're already building AI robots and have built plenty, I'm sure, to drop in military war zones. This will be the future of warfare. They have drone swarms and attack drones, unmanned. And in this current conflict, if you want to call it that, this slaughter in the Middle East, we have people are using AI in the war. And recently, the U.S. had a dogfight where they had an AI-powered, basically an AI jet, fighting against all of their top pilots, and it won every single time. And it can beat us at games, it can beat us at work, and so folks are freaking out about it. But here's the big problem. It's not just AI, it's not just technology, it's not even fucking social media that people are staring at their phones constantly when they're walking through the grocery store without even looking up. These are all problems, but they can resolve themselves. we put in the back of our minds things like nuclear war, the potential that right around the corner, we're closer than we've ever been to the potential for nuclear war somehow. And but we can't even think about that because there's so many other problems going on. And meanwhile, we grovel and fight about, you know, politics and who's going to be president. It's so, like I said, to reiterate at the beginning of the video, what are we doing? You know, I rebel against society, but not life itself. And I think that a lot of you are the same way. We enjoy life. We love life. We love our friends and family and communities. We just can't stand the way that politics affect us. Shit, I just got my paycheck. You know, 25% of it was taken out in taxes. What are my taxes doing? They're funding other people's weapons or going to, you know, fat cats in Washington, lobbyists who pay them off to allow corporations to run rampant over us. I really could rant for hours about that, but I won't. I won't. Every time I get frustrated about something like that and I want to make a video, I stop myself. You'll notice I don't usually make complaint videos. It doesn't mean that I don't have complaints. Man, I've got plenty of shit to talk about, plenty of complaints to make. The ones I do make, people are always surprised, like, oh, you shouldn't talk shit about other people or this or that, you know, just stick to talking about philosophy or whatever. And it always reminds me how funny that is that I really don't complain as much as I could. But when I do, I'll unload. I do that in the live casts. Maybe I'll do a live cast. But on the idea of believing in a higher power, I think that has been lost because God has been tainted, for example. Not just the term, but the people who believe have tainted it with dogmatic views that everyone else is wrong. And I understand religion, at least organized religion, because it gives people comfort and surety. But I honestly have a huge problem with it when it affects people who don't want to believe what they believe. So, for example, if you're a family of Christians and you have a member that doesn't want to be a Christian in your family and you disown them in some way because of that, I feel that it's a shameful act. It's really something wrong with people who disown or, you know, disavow people because they choose to believe something different. Because we can connect on the idea of a higher power. My God could be defined differently than yours. And I know a lot of Christians say that they're tolerant of other belief systems, but I really haven't seen it because I don't believe that it's, you know, I don't think they can. No offense to anyone out there, because I know some of my subscribers are Christians. It's just a curiosity that there's always been this kind of pious nature of those who, you know, believe this is what you believe. You either take Jesus or you're doomed, basically. You're going to hell. Never understood that mentality, and it doesn't resonate with anything that I can understand about the universe. But my connection with God, my own experiences have been so deep and so revelatory, and they are things that I cannot put into words. In fact, some of the things I've wanted to convey the most to make a video about, I have never been able to. I come up speechless. These are just like, wow. I get it. And it's always been something like, you know, take care of your community, your people, your family, love one another, realize that every human is part of this big picture, that we're all just wandering souls, if you will. And that's why I don't understand leaving other souls out. Maybe people aren't ready to evolve, but then the thing is, I don't believe heaven is a permanent state. If it exists at all, it's more of a place where energy goes, and maybe we do reincarnate. I'm kind of convinced at this point that we do, but in a way that we don't understand yet. There's Carl Jung talked a lot about that. It was pretty fascinating when I was listening to what he believed about these things, but I don't just take it from him. I've been looking into various comparative religions and the occult my whole life, but I've always told myself one thing: if I can prove to myself that God exists, fine, I'll believe. But until that happens, you know, I'm not going to fool myself. I'm not an idiot. It eventually happened fairly recently, but it wasn't as if it was a new surprise or revelation. It was more like something I already knew, but that I wanted to get a direct answer. I wanted to hear kind of what I needed to do with my life. And I got my answer, but it's more complicated than I could ever explain, of course. It's something that's for me personally. It's always been about that confidence in and trust. Not that I believe in something, but that I know. I don't know how to define this. I don't know how to define anything that I have faith in or understand in a way that it can be put into words. People have tried, and you usually end up reading archetypes through these allegories and poems and short stories, and it's easier to encode ideas in reflections of nature. This is why, the like moving through life is compared to the flow of water, and understanding these metaphors, we see how, when people say, that's why life is like water. You can't grasp it. Reality is like water. You have to just move through it, but you can't grasp it. And if we can find comfort in that and stop trying to prove what we believe, but rather just believe it and be who we are, I think that we really need to find more humor in ourselves. This is the first, key to be able to laugh at you and your own beliefs, ideas, follies, to be able to say, I'm just human. I'm just doing my best. It's having, for example, a church or, a pastor is really no different than having a a psychiatrist or a shaman or any of these other leaders that can suggest ideas, but ultimately we do the healing ourselves within. That we are the healers. We are our own best friend as long as we learn to have faith in ourselves. And we really don't need a medium to get to anywhere. We might use substances or practices because our normal, sober, conscious state is a beautiful thing. It shouldn't be overlooked or wasted. We shouldn't spend our whole lives just completely high and ignoring just the reality of just day-to-day life. To be able to go out and see the world and meet people and work and do the things, do the human things, right? But if we let go of that, and for me it's through certain substances, I can reach a state where I can communicate with, let's just say, energies, call them spirits, gods, it doesn't matter. To me, it's always a welcome home feeling, but it's never something that you can take back with you. And because of that, I've learned to accept that this life is a very beautiful thing, that this is a desirable state to be in, to be a human. As many problems as we may have, and I have plenty. Dude, both of my cars are fucked up. I right now should be cleaning out my garage. I have so many things in my life that I need to take care of. But taking the time to make this video and to talk about these things keeps my psyche clear. And that's the most important thing. As Alan Watts would say, you've got to be a rascal. Rascality. That's the universe. I'd like to go on, but I think I've made a good enough point in a long enough video. I'd like to save some of my energy and words for the podcast I'm going to make in a bit. If you're not familiar and with the podcast, I also have a podcast I try to post as often as I can. There's another one I think that uploaded today. I have a couple set to upload every Saturday, I believe. And it's called 15-Minute Free Thinking. I'm pretty lazy about putting links and stuff in the description, so hit me up if you want to know what that is. And I've also got another couple YouTube channels. You can usually track them down through the little links in my bio and crap. And if you're so inclined and you would like to be a patron for even $1, I have a Patreon account too. And I should take that time to thank my patrons and let them know once again that I should be putting your name in the credits, but I don't have any editing software, and that's not an excuse. But love you all. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you next time. And remember, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody. And you damn well don't have to take anybody else's advice if you don't want it. Just be who you be. You'll figure that shit out. Peace.